Hello and welcome to Rock Hard Robotics. And today I would like to talk about a fairly important concept in the realm of robotics, and that is working in an operating system that is not your basic Windows operating system. So, once you get to a certain stage of complexity within robotics, you will start to see that Windows is somewhat limited in the functionality that it can provide you in terms of working within your hardware, and some of the software tools that are written for this purpose are often written in Linux. So today I would like to sort of go over an introduction into Linux, and I'll probably start a series trying to show you the ropes of this widely misunderstood operating system so that you could get into Linux and start building. So today I actually have a Linux install. It's running on a virtual machine within Windows. And we are currently operating on Ubuntu version 2204, or more commonly known as Jammy Jellyfish. It's a good Ubuntu operating system to use at time of writing, because this is the native operating system that ROS2 Humble actually runs on. So if you want to work within ROS2 Humble, it is widely recommended that you use Ubuntu Jammy Jellyfish, because it is, I think, Tier 1 supported, which means that all the long-term support will be for this operating system. So the first thing you might notice, if you haven't used Linux before, is that the desktop doesn't look too unfamiliar with what people might be relatively, common with Windows and that sort of thing. You've got a desktop, you've got icons that you can double click on, and you've got a file explorer that operates very much in the same way as Windows. Of course, the location of some of these important files may be different. We will go over that in probably another video once we learn how to actually navigate the operating system. But you will notice that it's very similar to Windows. It's got Firefox, it's got a whole bunch of really nice built-in utilities, it's got LibreOffice. So if you want to work on your documents within a free text editor, you could even use LibreOffice. These actually come pre-packaged with Ubuntu. So this is a brand new install. I just downloaded the ISO from Canonical, and I'll probably put a link in the description as to where you could find the ISO for this version of Linux. But this is a fresh install, so this is what you can expect just installing Ubuntu 2204 brand new. However, when you are operating on a mobile system in particular, the one thing that you will find you lack is actually a monitor. So while it's nice to navigate around a graphical interface, and you can go into documents and you can go into folders and you can see what you're doing and you can click, that is often a luxury that you can't afford when working on robots that have either a weight budget or just simply don't have room for a display and a keyboard and a mouse and that sort of thing. So what you will likely need to get familiar with is the terminal. So on Ubuntu, if you press Control Alt and T, you will get your terminal, and you will see we start here. We've got our username, and then we've got the name of our computer, and this is what you'll likely be working with. In a lot of production environments, you will usually remote in through a service such as SSH or Secure Shell, which is nothing I'll probably go into in the future. But let's just go over some of the more useful commands within this terminal space. So the first thing you will notice is that you don't really know where you are. So the way you can find out where you are is you can type in pwd, and that just stands for Preview Working Directory. And if you press enter, it'll actually tell you you are in /home, and then usually your username. In my case, we have RHR. So this is where we currently are. So if we opened up, for example, our file explorer, we are currently in here. We are in home, and you can't see the RHR here, but just take my word for it, we are in the same place. So our terminal is here. So what can we do now that we are in this folder? Well, let's see what files and folders are currently in our working directory. And we can do this by typing ls, and that stands for list. It's a command that you'll use a lot. So if we type ls, we can actually see these are all of our folders that we could actually see in our file explorer, because it's the same place. Only this is within our terminal. Now, this, for a lot of people, might be adequate, but if you want more information, you can actually add a command line flag to ls by typing hyphen, and then just type L and H. Now, you don't have to put in the H, but I like to put in the H, and I'll show you why. So when you type -L, it actually puts it in this listed format here. So we have same folders, but if you look over here, we have some additional information. And a lot of this information looks scary at first. And again, I'll go into more detail as to what all of these letters and numbers and everything means later on. But for now, what you need to know is we have our user that owns the folder, and then the group that owns the folder. And then over here, we actually have the permissions for these folders. And the most important one for you at the moment is to look at this letter to the far left. Because that will tell you whether you have a directory or a folder, or if you're looking at a file. So in this case, all of these are directories. We've got the desktop directory, documents directory, etc., etc. So now that we know what is on our desktop, how do we actually enter these folders? Say I've got things stored in documents, as you do. How do I get into documents to do things to the files inside of documents? Well, there's a convenient command, and that is cd, and that stands for change directory. So we'll type cd, and then we'll type the name of the directory that we want to enter. And it is important to note that Linux terminal is case sensitive. Lowercase d for documents is not the same as capital D for documents. You need to make sure that when you type it in correctly. So I'm going to put in capital D for documents. I'm actually just going to type in DOC. The nice thing about many Linux terminals is that you can hit the tab key, and it will auto-complete whatever you are typing in based on what is in your current directory. So in this case, it knows that there is a folder called documents, and it has auto-completed documents for us. So we can press enter, and you can actually see over here in blue that we are now currently in documents. We can type ls again, we can see what's inside, and currently it's empty. Sanity check that for a second. So if we go into documents here, it is indeed empty. The system works. So there's nothing in here. Maybe this was a bit of a mistake. How do we go back? Well, the way you can go up one level is you type cd for change directory again, and then you want to put in 2 full stops. And that just means you want to go up one level. And if we press enter, you will find we are now no longer in documents. And type in ls, and you can see we are back to our original folder here. All right, that's all well and good. How do we actually make folders? How do we make files? How do we edit it? How do we do all of that good stuff? We want to first create a file. So we've got nothing to edit. And the way you normally create an empty file is I like to use touch. And touch will just create an empty file. So we'll give it a name. So we'll call it cool file, and we'll go .txt. We'll press enter. And we don't get anything on our terminal, but if we type ls, and we'll do long list, here it is. It's coolfile.txt. So how do we edit coolfile.txt? Well, there's a few ways. You can either download Vim, which is a very popular text editor, but it for a lot of people is quite complicated. Or we could use a built-in Ubuntu piece of software called Nano. So we'll type Nano, we'll type the name of our file, and then we'll press enter. And this is now a terminal text editor for our cool file. We can type in, this is a cool file. Put in a smiley face there. And once we are finished, you can see towards the bottom of the screen, there are a couple of keyboard shortcuts that do different things. You can go ahead and read these and play around with them, but the most important thing we want to do at the moment is we want to get out of this text editor. We do that by doing control, so the caret means control, control X. So go control X, and it'll ask us if we want to save our modified buffer, which just means do we want to save our file. Press Y for yes, and it'll ask us for the file name, and it's automatically put in coolfile.txt. Sounds right to us, so we'll press enter. And now we have edited our cool file. And if we type ls-l again, you might see that this number here has changed, and this is the actual file size. So it's now 23. And if we type ls-lh, you will actually see the H just stands for human readable, which means this big number here has now been shortened to a more readable K for 1000. So now we've actually got stuff in our file. So how do we read it? Maybe we don't want to read the file without entering the text editor. Well, there is an easy way to do that. We use cat. And cat will just print out the contents of a file. So that's cat coolfile.txt. And you can see in our terminal, this is a cool file. Awesome. Now, let's just say we don't want this file anymore. We want to get rid of it. We can do so by typing rm, which stands for remove, and we'll put in coolfile.txt. And we press enter. It will list again. And you will see that our cool file is now gone. It's deleted. We can't see it anymore. The system works. So that is some very basic file editing, file management sort of operation there. But what if we wanted to create a new folder, a new directory? Well, the way to do that is there's a bash command called mkdir, or make directory. So this will create a folder, and we'll call this folder awesome files. Why not? Press enter. And we'll just ls, and you can see we now have a new directory called awesome files. We can enter that. Currently it's empty. So we'll go ahead and we'll just touch a new file. And there's our new file. And you can see it's empty. It's got 0 bytes in it. And we'll just go back. And let's just say we want to get rid of our new folder called awesome files. Well, conventionally you would think we'll just rm awesome files. And it will actually throw an error. The reason why it will throw an error is that rm currently assumes that you are trying to remove a file. So if you try to remove a directory, it will say, this isn't a file, it's a directory. We can't do that. The way you can override that is you can actually put in a -r flag, which stands for recursive remove. And that will basically iterate over everything inside of the file, and then inside the folder and the folder itself, and remove it. And if we press enter, you will see awesome files and all of its contents are now gone. So that's cool. But what about copy and paste? That's a very important thing to do. So let's go ahead and touch a new file. and you can see our new file is here. And we'll create a new directory called files, and we want to move new file into our files directory. Well, we can do that using mv, and mv just stands for move. That's a pretty obvious one. So we will type mv, we'll type in the name of the file we want to actually move, and then the location for it. And you can actually rename files this way. So if you move a file, but you don't specify a new destination, but you just specify just the name of a different file name, .txt or whatever you happen to call the file type, it will actually just rename the file and it will not in fact move it. But in this case, we want it to maintain its file name. So if we just type mv new file.txt and then files and press enter, it will just move it in there. So we'll just cd into files with the exact same name. And just to prove to you that I'm not lying, let's go ahead and rename it to oldfile.txt. And you can see it's now renamed to old file. New file's gone, old file is still there. Now, old file is something that maybe we want to have a copy of. So how do we copy it? Well, that one is done by the cp command, which stands for copy. We'll type in the name of the file we want to copy, in this case oldfile.txt, and then we will specify the location and the file name that we want to copy to. In this case, let's just copy it to the exact same folder, but we'll call it oldfile1.txt. We'll press enter, and if we list, you will see there is a copy called oldfile1. That covers all of the file management commands within Linux, so creating and destroying new files and folders, moving, copying, etc., etc. And for the next one, I'll probably delve more into the permissions system within Linux. So that's elaborating on these characters here, what they mean, how you can change them, how you can work around them, what you need to do to make sure you are getting the most out of existing and new pieces of software within Linux, and maybe how to diagnose permissions errors when you see them. I'll also go into how the Linux file system is actually structured, because there's a very specific way that Linux likes to structure the location of its files and folders, and you'll find that it's very different to conventional consumer operating systems such as Windows and Mac OS. And just sort of goes to show that navigating the file system within Linux terminal need not be daunting. It's really not too much different to navigating it through the file explorer. It's just a few extra steps, and to a lot of people it could look scary, but really with a little bit of practice you will find that it's quite easy. So thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.